to everyone. I've been given 2 minutes to try and synopsize decades of devoted leadership service to the Jewish people and to the state of Israel on behalf of Gilad Erdan. Gilad must have taken his first ministerial post right after his bar mitzvah, because there is no way that it's possible for him to have held so many important posts, including vital ministries and 17 years in the Knesset at his still young age. In those important positions, he led the fights on environmental issues, on privatization, developing new technologies to prevent terror attacks, child welfare, and so much more. And I was privileged to work with him when he was the Minister of Strategic Affairs, and he led the efforts by the government of Israel, but also worldwide, against the BDS movement, against the delegitimization of the State of Israel, and mobilizing the resources, conduct that campaign from campuses to communities around the world, exposing the anti-Semitic core and the terrorist affiliations of many of those involved. He noticed also, amongst the first, that the media, the social networks, the platforms provided on the internet have become a source of incitement and hatred against Israel and the Jewish people. And he worked to get those social network organizations to change their rules and to drop those hateful sites. Capping his career, a storied career to date, and we know that there's much more yet to come, was his appointment as the dual Israeli ambassador to the United States and the ambassador to the United Nations, where he used his well-honed skills to take on the anti-Israel culture at the United Nations that you all know so well, to continue the battle against anti-Semitism amongst the members of the United Nations and outside, and from the Conference of Durban to Ben & Jerry's ice cream, he has been on the forefront of fighting every anti-Semitic manifestation. He spoke truth to power, as he did opposing policies when he was in the Knesset in Israel, always for the purpose of the Jewish people and for the good of the state of Israel. When he was at the United Nations, he began to reach out and took dozens of members of the United Nations, ambassadors from Africa, Asia, others, to visit Israel, because there's nothing that can change their views and tell them the truth than seeing Israel personally. And as a result, we have seen the change in the patterns of those voting in the United Nations. He challenged the United Nations agencies like UNRWA, taking on their biased approaches. His advocacy for the Abraham Accords was evidenced in recent weeks in New York with UN ambassadors, in Washington with their counterparts there, to celebrate what was achieved, but also to open new vistas and opportunities. Despite his youth, there is much more to come, and we know that he has achieved even more than I could tell you in this time, so you'll have to go to the journal to read more about him. His greatest achievement, of course, is his wife and his 4 children. The Algemeiner Journal is truly privileged to be able to pay honor to Ambassador Gilad Erdan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm giving up my speech, I think. Okay, didn't work. So good evening again, and I really don't know what to say. Thank you very much, Malcolm, for that very, very warm introduction. I hope I deserve all the kind words that you said about me. And I want to thank you for the great work that you do for Israel and the Jewish people. Thank you, Malcolm Hoenlein. He deserves it. I also want to thank tonight the chairman and publisher of Algemeiner, Simon Jacobson, and the editor-in-chief, my friend David Efyun, and his wife Mushka, and the event chairs Neil and Sharon Book. I'm deeply honored to receive this tremendous award, Algemeiner's Warrior for Truth. And to my co-honorees, Megan McCain, Deborah Messing, Nina Renner Davidson, and David and Mushka again, congratulations to you. Friends, it's great to be here with you all. Due to COVID, I haven't had too many in-person events recently, but I can tell you that you are a much, much warmer audience than what I'm used to at the UN. So, as we are all aware, Israel and the Jewish people face serious challenges today. Iran, through the advancements of its nuclear program and its support for terror proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas, seeks to surround Israel with bombs and rockets from all sides, threatening us with complete destruction. Anti-Semitism and its modernized version, anti-Zionism, endangers Jews everywhere. The BDS movement, both online and on campuses, seeks to demonize the state of Israel and to question our right to exist. But perhaps the biggest threat facing Israel and the Jewish people is the deadly combination of lies and disinformation, because these lies are the ammunition that our enemies use to incite hatred against so many innocent Jews and Israelis. These lies are the weapons that our enemies use to delegitimize our fundamental right to defend ourselves. I am the proud grandson of Holocaust survivors. Their horrific and heroic stories ingrained in me from a young age that disinformation may only begin as words, yet physical violence is always only one small step away. Perhaps the most recent example of the danger that distorting the truth poses was Operation Guardian of the Walls. The facts were straightforward. Hamas fired 4,000 rockets indiscriminately at innocent civilians, including at Jerusalem. Israel, in stark contrast, did everything to protect human lives on both sides and to minimize civilian casualties. Yet, those who hate Israel and the Jewish people began a campaign of lies and false accusations to defame Israel, and these messages spread quickly with the help of social media. These lies translated into physical acts of violence against Jews around the world. Meanwhile, at the UN, the House of Lies, these falsehoods spread throughout the General Assembly, swaying more countries to demonize Israel's defensive actions and to make the blatantly immoral comparison between terrorists and a vibrant democracy. But speaking up amid a sea of lies is no simple feat, especially when we hold an unpopular opinion. Nonetheless, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. And friends, it is our duty to be revolutionaries. At the UN, it is my top priority to denounce the falsehoods and showcase the facts. When the UN announced it would hold an event for the 20th anniversary of the so-called Durban Conference, the exemplar of modern Jew hatred, I worked with my colleagues around the world and with Jewish organizations to generate an intense diplomatic pressure campaign. And thanks to our efforts, 38 countries publicly denounced the event and did not attend. The empty chairs in the UN General Assembly served as living proof of the power of truth. Just this past week, at a UN meeting about UNRWA, a UN agency that perpetuates incitement against Israel and protects Hamas, I brought this sign. Look at this. A clear proof of a post by an UNRWA teacher praising Hitler. Shockingly, the UN did not let me bring this into the General Assembly for all to see. But I wasn't deterred. I swore to spread this message across the world. I will not be bullied into silence. Dear friends, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, the great Tanaic sage, once said, "The word stands on three pillars: justice, truth, and peace." These words serve as a guideline light for me. When the truth prevails, justice and peace can be established. Yet, without truth, anarchy and violence reign supreme. Let us all be students of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and support the pillar of truth. Friends, Jewish history is full of examples of strongly standing up for what we knew was right. From the Maccabees to Masada and from Beitar to Tel Chai. This is a value that has been embedded in our tradition, and it is one which I always try to embody, even when it means supporting the unpopular opinion. By leading protests against allowing the murderer Arafat and his gang to take control over Judea and Samaria during the Oslo Accords, or fighting for the Jewish citizen being uprooted from Gush Katif, I made it my mission to fight for my beliefs and never give in. This value of never surrendering to falsehoods played a crucial role in making the monumental Abraham Accords possible. Because Israel stood up for the truth, the moderate nations of the Middle East understood that Israel is here to stay and that a relationship with Israel does not depend on the Palestinians. Through these incredible peace agreements, our new partners have come to understand just how much the sons of Abraham have in common, despite the lies about Israel that their parents and grandparents may have believed. Israel's neighbors are seeing the truth. Israel is a country of creativity, of innovation and peace. I truly believe that this is spreading, and we will soon see more Muslim countries joining this circle of peace. Ironically, while 3 Muslim Arab countries repealed laws boycotting Israel, an American company decided to boycott the Jewish state. But when you ask Ben & Jerry's why you decided to only single out Israel, they say, "I don't know." I hope you saw the guy. It might be ignorance. In other cases, such as the squad's despicable actions, it is pure anti-Semitism. But regardless of its source, we must always continue fighting it. This just shows that while the truth may be spreading, we still have much to overcome. Friends, if we are talking about spreading the truth, we should remember that the media plays a critical role. This is why we are so thankful for Algemeiner's outstanding work. Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and Nobel laureate, once said, "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." We must never be silent. We must always take the side of the truth against those who seek to silence us, to oppress us, to delegitimize us. Algemeiner has, for decades, stood at the forefront of this fight. Your voice was particularly important during the last operation in Gaza and remains a beacon of truth in an ocean of misinformation. So again, I want to thank you again for this great honor, and I would also like to thank Algemeiner for the critical work that it has done and continues to do. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.